Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Sunday for a new ceremony of the Church of Truth. Today, we're going to be talking about cleansing because the topics of my worship services really kind of depends on what I'm inspired to talk about. And in the past 5 days, I've been through a prolonged fasting, and it was very much needed, and it was really beautiful. Also, like all the things that came up with it, and all the kind of spiritual awakenings that I had, ego deaths that I had. So it was really, really beautiful. And I think everybody should go through some sort of fast or fasting every once in a while. And I realized how the timing is also fundamental to achieve certain kinds of spiritual elevation. And so I'm going to be talking about that in something else, not in the worship service. But today we are going to be talking about cleansing. So first of all, we're going to have, and this ceremony is going to go online. So you guys are going to have to do the ritual, the cleansing ritual by yourself. But you'll see that I have a pamphlet here that I'm about to share. Screen. Okay, I'm sharing my screen. You guys should be able to see my pamphlet here instead of myself. So first of all, this is a Christian spiritual church. It's a holistic Christian spiritual church because we believe both in Jesus and the gospel, and we are agnostic regarding some of the interpretations of the scriptures because everything done by men ultimately can be in some way modified. And so even if the scriptures are truthful, then priests can still say something in their ceremonies that is not really truthful or is not aligned to what Jesus actually meant. And by reading the gospel myself, I realize how a lot of interpretations of what Jesus was saying are really pretty obviously false. Like they're really inconsistent with Jesus' character and what he was preaching, which is instead very, very solid, very consistent. Um, and so what it means, first of all, to be a Christian, that so being a Christian doesn't mean it's not really a religion in a sense. And what I mean by that is that there are people who are born Christian and people who are really not born Christian. It's really that simple. Like there are certain people, and there is the beautiful parable of the tares in the gospel, in which Jesus explains that the kingdom of God is like a field in which the landlord seeded a lot of different, like seeded good seeds, he says. And so these good seeds are wheat in the parable. And then the servants go and try to harvest or like to take care of the field. And they realize that there are also bad weeds in between the wheat, and they go to the landlord and say, hey, like there are also bad weeds here. There is not just weed. So who planted that? And he said the enemy planted those things, seeded the bad weeds, but just let them grow together. And at the end, when they both are going to be grown and adult and in their full form, then we're going to be able to discern between who is wheat and who is not. And so they're just people in the world. And again, and Jesus also believed in reincarnation. He said it a lot of times in the gospel. He said that we're going to have to be reborn and reborn. And so ultimately, this planet is really a way for us to cleanse from evil, for going from one life to the other, to cleanse and to demonstrate what our truthful inner engine is. Like, are we tares or are we wheat? What kind of person are we? And so there are people who are just born right away as Christians in the sense that they behave as Christians already. They already follow the Ten Commandments. And when I talk about the Ten Commandments, I usually talk about the seven commandments in the sense that the first three are something that we do if we are Christians, like if we believe in God, if we believe in Jesus, if we really are part, if you are faithful in a specific religion. But the other seven are really part of our inner engine, and there are people who are there. So some of us are already born with that kind of mindset, and that is what being a Christian really means. It means that you respect those laws, which are the Ten Commandments. But some of us just do that normally, like we're born with it. And that just means that we are the generation who has genetically and epigenetically and spiritually cleansed from all the evil that our families carried. And now we're finally the so-called cycle breakers. And now there are a lot of cycle breakers in the world, and they're ultimately Christian. Like they don't realize that they're Christians, but that's what being Christian means. It means you have cleansed, and now you're finally ready to join God and to remember about the truth because you have cleansed from evil. And so this is really our main these are really our main values as a church, in the sense of the main regulations of our church for behavior conduct are really the Ten Commandments. That's it. This is all we need to do to really be good people, because the Ten Commandments really are about common sense and being a good person with others and loving yourself and loving people around you and respecting people's boundaries. This is right. If we had to talk about the Ten Commandments today, you will see that they overlap with most of the guidelines that, a psychologist or a coach will give you no matter what, especially to protect yourself from narcissistic abuse. Because narcissistic abuse is nothing else than a form of evil trying to hurt you or to damage you through other people. When you are a cycle breaker, when you have cleansed already, then you start being attacked. You cannot be attacked in your own mind anymore because you have cleansed, or I mean you can, but you're gonna be keep cleansing from it, but you can be attacked by people around you. And so in a world that is full of bad weeds, that is full of evil people who have not cleansed yet, it's obvious that those who do cleanse are going to become victims of abuse by evil people around them, or by people um who become possessed by evil, in a sense, become vessels of evil energies that are not holy. And so this is completely normal. And so it's also normal that people start not realizing initially how really the normal, like what we call just, being a good person, ultimately has to do with the Ten Commandments. Because why would you do any of those things? Right? Why would you murder someone? That's definitely not something you want to do. So let's go to our cleansing ceremony. This is for you to enter this ceremony, and I suggest you, obviously this is going to go online, and so I'm not gonna know who is actually going to do this or not, but just know that this is a holy space, this is a sacred space. And so it's important for you to follow these rules, for you to actually be doing something good and something right, and God is watching you. And so this is a cleansing ceremony for you to enter the remaining part of the ceremony. And so if you want to continue, I suggest you to just read this out loud. And if you feel like you're not capable of doing that, that means you shouldn't continue. You should just go and cleanse on your own, because that means you're carrying some form of evil and you should not enter this ceremony. So I'm gonna read it first and then you can read it as well. I'm here today on a pure heart. I have no malicious intents, and I leave outside of this ceremony all the evil that I consciously or unconsciously carry. I am ready to cleanse my body, my mind, and my soul. I surrender to the Lord, to Jesus, and to the Holy Spirit. Take me, I am yours, and only you I serve you. Now it's your turn. Take your time, pause the video, read this out loud, really feel it in your heart. And once you're done, you can keep going with the ceremony. I'll see you on the other side. First of all, the church's mission is really to shine light and truth and prevent darkness from spreading, to combat inequalities and oppression, and raise the level of consciousness of humanity through education, social justice advocacy, holistic healing and science, spirituality, education, and by raising awareness. So these things are all together really the belief system of this church. I'm the founder of this church. And what the belief system ultimately is that physical healing and social, political, and economical healing are as important as everything else, as going to church, for us to be able to reconnect with God. Ultimately, we are here to cleanse from evil and to heal the world from evil. That's what Jesus was doing. He was really constantly healing people from spirits and from demons and from evil. And so evil takes a lot of different shapes. And Jesus was a political activist. Jesus was going around and he would tell the truth all the time. He would tell people that they were hypocrites. He would tell people that they were destroying the people. And he was very intelligent in terms of diplomatic and strategic in talking to people, but he was having a ultimately he was a political activist as well in his surroundings, like he was the son of God, but in the earth, is in his earthly form. It was also having the function of a human rights defender, of a political activist, of a whistleblower, if you want. And so these things, what Jesus was doing, were just part of these three three-sided three-sided triangle, which is ultimately the Trinity as well, in a sense. It was from one side healing, and from another side it was telling the truth, and from another side it was advocating for people, like the Magdalene, for example, when he told everybody who is without sin can throw the first stone at her. So you see how these three things really go together, because that's the engine. That's the engine that you have inside. If your engine is not like this, that means you're not fully aligned with the will of God. You're not fully aligned with what you're supposed to do on this planet. And obviously, each one of us has a different amount of courage, a different amount of capability of telling the truth, a different amount of intuition. And so we all are different. And so because of that, we all have a different balance between the sides of this triangle. So not all of us are going to have a regular triangle with all the sides all the same. But some of us are going to be skewed on one side or the other, but the important part is to stay within triangle, because if this shape changes, in the sense that if you're not really doing any of these things, then you're really not aligned with the will of God. And so people can't go around and say that they're Christians if they don't advocate for other people, if they don't tell the truth, if they're narcissistic. That's the opposite. That's the opposite of being Christian. And so for our church, it's important to do all three things. And holistic healing is fundamental, because I feel like there has been a lot of misconceptions about this as well, in the sense that since probably when Jesus is being crucified, then the devil is really being working very hard to conquer places like Western healthcare, Western science, and a lot of academic positions and political positions and medical positions, so that it's the devil now who is telling the truth more than religion. But those things are becoming so fake and so much used just for profit and for control and for power and for wealth, that they're becoming obviously poisonous. Like, the universe is designed for the lies to not stand so long, because this universe is designed to be able to distinguish between the tares and the wheat, the bad weeds and the wheat. And so ultimately, everything that happens in the universe is designed to expose who is doing wrongdoings, and to make the wrongdoings not go too far, and to allow only those who tell the truth to keep going. This is really how the universe is designed. But this keep going is not just in our physical reality, obviously, it's also the spiritual reality because we are eternal beings. So this is just a shape we take. So ultimately, however, in the past 2000 years, humanity has been oppressed and manipulated for so long and so much that our entire body has become a source of evil in the sense. Like our body has become a hindrance to spiritual awakening, to spiritual enlightenment, to elevation of our vibration instead of a tool. And we're constantly poisoned with from alcohol to farmed animals that become meat on our plates, and those animals are tortured, and then we eat the pain of those animals, and our body reacts to all of those things, and all the medicines and drugs we take, and all the lies we are told constantly, and all the stress we're constantly put through. All those things are really becoming a huge challenge for our body to overcome in order to just reach the zero that we need to reach for us to be able to rejoin, to remember about the truth, about the fact that God exists, that Jesus exists. It's just a hindrance. All these things are just a hindrance. And so it's important for our church, for people to cleanse and to reach holistic well-being, to treat their body as their temple, because it is their temple. And unfortunately, a lot of things that really are poisonous to our body and that are bringing us down below the level of zero, so that we can't even reach the zero we needed for us to remember and to elevate. So we're just below that level. And we don't even know that because most of the things that we do in our life are actually the source of that. And I'm talking about everything. Our entire society is designed to prevent us from remembering about God. Because if we remember about God, we can be tools of evil. And we are completely, actually, the great majority of people today see Christianity as something that is completely nonsense, completely, but they drink alcohol all the time. What is that? Is not that nonsense? Or they go to a therapist who gaslight them all the time. So is not that nonsense? All these things we do, they're so nonsense, but those things are okay. But Christianity is nonsense. So people constantly do all of these things, constantly, and they commit fraud, or they allow their bosses to commit fraud, or they look on their side when someone else is committing a fraud, and when they see abuses and they don't have homelessness and they want everybody, not in my backyard, right? But then Christianity is nonsense. You see what is like, this is how manipulated people are. And so it's important for our church's mission to both to do all these things together, to like help people who are persecuted, because that's the ultimate purpose of church. Because a church or anybody who does not help the persecuted is someone who would have crucified Jesus, literally. Like people who would not help those in need are people who, if they had seen Jesus, if they were present at the time of Jesus, they would have either been the Judah, or the one denying Jesus, or the one looking at him but not helping, or the one not doing anything. Ultimately, we have allowed Jesus to be crucified through these kind of behaviors that we still have today. But those who still have those same behaviors today are just tares, or people who need to cleanse for a longer time. Maybe 2000 years is not enough. So now, so part of our mission is both to spread awareness so that people remember things and realize all of these gaps that don't make any sense in what we're told in this propaganda. And on the other side, to advocate and to help for people who are suffering injustices. And from the other side, to heal both with the spiritual side and with the holistic health healing side. Our church believes in fact that we believe in physics, we believe in science, but not in what scientists say. We believe in the study of the universe, because the universe has laws, as everything. The universe functions in a specific way, and is designed ultimately to cleanse us from evil and to allow only the truth to keep going. This is how the universe is really designed. So studying the universe is really kind of unnecessary in the sense that we ultimately just have to go through a certain journey, and studying the universe can become, as the devil has made it become, a way to really prevent people from reaching awareness. Like once you know how the system works, you can hijack it and kind of use tricks to prevent you from being discovered, right? And so that's why evil people are really in science nowadays. But at the same time, this is real. Like the universe is real, is physical. Even if it's a virtual reality that we are experiencing, it's still real for us. It has laws, it has things attached to it, it has properties, and we must navigate it in the meantime that we survive. Even if our lifetime as forms is very limited in terms of time, still this time is necessary for us to have a mission, to have a purpose. We all have a divine mission that God has given to us for here. Sometimes that purpose is cleansing, sometimes that purpose is helping others to cleanse or helping people see evil things. Everybody has a different mission, but we all have a mission. And so then we believe that obviously we have this Newtonian dimension that is the one where we can have the attrition and we hit each other. And there are, this is the Newtonian physics, and things fall down with gravity. And then there is the quantum physical reality where gravity doesn't matter anymore because things are already moving in orbit, in a sense, around something, some sort of gravitational field. And so at that point, gravity becomes a constant. And when it's a constant, it's like it doesn't really exist anymore. And so quantum reality is really what we reach when we realize, when we have our very first spiritual awakening, like the quantum leap. And that's part of really starting to elevate as a body. Once we elevate as a body, then it becomes easier for us to see the truth because we are not anymore under the gravitational attraction that is not just about gravity, because in the universe in the universe all these forces take different shapes and different names and different strengths at different levels. I'll give you an example. Gravity is what keeps the universe together, because ultimately the reason why all the planets and all things are kept around one another instead of escaping is because they're attracted to one another by gravity. But what is keeping us, what is keeping our families together? It's love, for example, or trauma bond as well. So those are the forces that gravity takes at the level of people. At the level of people, love is what gravity is. And so there are a lot of things that really push us down, because it can be love, but it can also be trauma bond that keeps us together. And it can be gravity in the sense that it keeps us here, but it also can be very obese. And so gravity pulls us down so much that it makes us age faster. And so it's important to elevate physically and mentally and spiritually, because also obesity prevents us from actually being able to elevate mentally. So we are designed ultimately as a body and as a person. We are designed as humans to elevate by really escaping gravity in a lot of different ways, from a Newtonian physical perspective to a quantum physical perspective to a spiritual perspective. We are designed to elevate consistently in all of these levels. And once we elevate, then we can finally remember about God. And obviously, there are people who can reach a certain level of spiritual awakening without having to go through all of these things. But that happens usually, for example, the Buddha who fasted 40 days and meditated 40 days, or other people who had very traumatic near-death experiences. And there is a neurobiological reason for all of that. But ultimately, the point is, most people do not do that. So most people can't go that kind of immediate shift or cannot mimic it. And so the other way of doing this is to just follow a healthy lifestyle and to follow a certain journey of healing and of awakening that is just a holistic healing approach to elevation. And so what we need to do very initially at the very beginning is really trauma healing, because that is what brings us down below the level of really just presence, just being here. Like most people are so much into their fight or flight mode. They're constantly looking down, they're constantly focusing on details, on things. And sometimes it's our jobs that make us focus on details so much that we lose the big picture, such as engineers. They're focused on the code and all the commas and things they have written, which is beautiful. But at the same time, if there is not someone telling you, hey, you're too focused on the details, that you're losing the whole purpose of it. And so we must remember that we need to elevate and to be present at the same time. And so trauma healing and elevation in that sense is really the very first level of awakening. And then awakening from gaslighting that comes with trauma as well. And when we are raised by people, especially who are evil or who in some way are dysfunctional because of all of these things that our body go through and that prevent our body becomes a hindrance for good and for God, and becomes a vessel for evil because of all of those things. And so we must awaken from the gaslighting or from any kind of um, thing that ultimately gave us a false narrative about just the present, just being present. And then we must awaken from our ego and have an ego death, because the ego is what really keep us also in another fictitious reality that prevent us from just really reaching our center and being present. It's almost as if we live in this grandiose or fictitious persona, that we believe in this story and in these things, and because of that, things around us hurt us or make us be happy. But that is just due to our ego. That has nothing to do with the truth. Then we can have the enlightenment, which usually also comes from a physical kind of awakening, in the sense that oftentimes it has to do with us awakening our chakra points, or us awakening our energy body and our spiritual self. And once we align with that from a physical standpoint and from a spiritual standpoint, then we're really ready to remember about the truth. And I know that because I had a Kundalini awakening, and basically I had an awakening on all of my chakras one by one. And like this is like it happened in multiple situations, not just during the Kundalini awakening. But then I remembered about God, and it's just like, oh wow, now I remember why I'm here. It's crazy. How have I forgotten? Like it's just like a remembering about the truth. Where have I been? Which is really the same in all of these phases. It's almost as if you're like, wow, where have I been? At every step. So that is what awakening means. Awakening means you were asleep before, and then once you awaken, you're like, wow, I was asleep. And so this happens when we are on PTSD and then we awaken. And it's a neurobiological thing. Like really it has to do with the reactivation of parts of our brain that are dormant because of abuse, because of stress, because of oppression, because of lack of nutrients, and because we are really constantly pushed down by this gravitational attraction that can be physical gravity, can be trauma bond, or can be people pushing us down in various ways and constantly stressing us intentionally with a lot of noise, with a lot of pollution, and with a lot of indoctrinations and propaganda that don't make any sense, but that cause our brain to build all of these uh, inconsistent network of neurons that prevent us from being aware and from being woke. And so it's really a neurobiological phenomenon. And today, the greater majority of the population has gone through this kind of gaslighting. And because of that, their brain needs cleansing. And today, we're going to be talking about cleansing. So first of all, this starts with John 13, 5:10, which is talks about Jesus washing the feet of the disciples. And I kind of skipped part so I'm going to give you some context to this first, because this is the supper in which Jesus already knew that Judah had been tainted by evil, had been the devil had seeded this little seed in his mind to betray Jesus. And so Jesus already knew. And so he went and washed the feet of all the disciples, which was also a great way of confirming what he knew and of putting them on the spot, like putting him, Judah, on the spot, because you're going to betray me and I'm doing such an act of love towards you. So it was a great way of really seeing. It was a test. It was a great test as well. But after, while doing that, the disciples were asking, why are you doing this? Like this, like you are our Lord. Why are you washing our feet? This is something that servants usually do. And so it's beautiful, this passage really, not just in terms of cleansing from a physical standpoint, obviously, and from a spiritual standpoint, but also cleansing from evil that also comes with pride, with grandiosity, thinking that we shouldn't be doing things to others that are low, and instead we should. Like, it's actually a beautiful experience to be a servant to others, and it humbles you down in a way that is just incredible and is absolutely needed. So let's read it together. Actually, I'll read it. You can listen, guys. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet and to wipe them with the towel with which he was girded. Then he came to Simon Peter, and Peter said to him, Lord, are you washing my feet? Jesus answered and said to him, what I'm doing to you, you do not understand now, but you will know after this. Peter said to him, you shall never wash my feet. Jesus answered him, I do not wash you. If I do not wash you, you have no part with me. Simon Peter said to him, Lord, not my feet only, but also my hands and my head. Jesus said to him, he who is bathed needs only to wash his feet, but is completely clean, and you are clean, but not all of you. And so this is beautiful, first of all, because Peter initially was like, Simon Peter was like, hey, I don't want you, Jesus, to wash my feet. Like, you're my Lord, right? Like, I don't want you to go down and wash my feet. So do something so dirty, touch something so dirty, because the feet is what we don't take care of. I feel like feet are something that really symbolizes um the dirtiest part of us, because it's the part that we use the most, and because we use it so much, then we don't have time to clean it. In a sense, like, our bodies are tools, and sometimes the tool has to just go in the dirt, and you're not proud of it, but you're not proud of going in the darkness sometimes, but you have to do that because that's part of existing, right? And so for you to elevate, you must walk straight, but for you to walk straight, your feet have to become your tool, and that is the tool that touches the lowest part, is the least elevated, is the lowest part of you, the most dirty, the one that really is in the darkness more than your head, right? And so washing the feet is just really beautiful, right? And if you clean that part, then everything else is clean, because that was the dirty part. And when Simon Peter says, Jesus, I don't want you to wash my feet. And Jesus says, if I don't wash your feet, you don't have any part with me, which is also the same thing that I tell you with the cleansing ceremony at the beginning. Like, if you don't do the cleansing ceremony at the beginning, you have no part with me. You can watch this ceremony, but you're not actually participating. And it's a completely different experience, I assure you. And so it's really like Jesus is telling him, I'm not doing this for you only. This is a, a bond, right? This is a bond between us. This is the fact that you allow me to wash your feet. And so you're really also, you're bonding, right? It's like, you allow me to wash you, you allow me to cleanse you, you want to be cleansed by me. And so then we can be part, so that we're both clean. And then Simon Peter replies in a beautiful way. It's like, well, I don't then just want you to wash my feet only. I want you to wash my head and my hands. I want you to wash all of me, because I want you to, for all of me to be to take part with you. How beautiful is that? I'm about to cry. And Jesus told him, don't worry, like in the sense, if I wash your feet, every part of you is gonna be clean. But he says, um, but not all of you are clean. And when he says that, he actually refers to the disciples, and he refers to the fact that Judah was um was not clean. Judah, because cleansing has to do with cleansing away cleansing away the devil, cleansing from evil. And so if you're not willing to cleanse, that's why at the beginning I tell you, if you're not willing to repeat that phrase, if you feel resistance, just leave, because that means you have evil in you and you don't want to cleanse it. And so Jesus ultimately said, not all of you are cleansed, because even if I wash your feet, if your heart doesn't want to be cleaned, if you have been tainted, if you have been seeded with a seed that does not come from me, then you're not gonna want to take part with me fully, with your full body. And as Jesus said in another part of the gospel, he said, it's better that if one of your eyes is evil, it's better for you to pluck it out instead of for you to not be able to enter heaven, in a sense. And heaven is just really another dimension, in a sense, of our universe, in the sense that it's the spiritual dimension of the universe, which is, the more we elevate, the more we reach heaven. But not everybody can do that. That's why we have so many people who worship the devil nowadays, because they just realize that for them to reach higher levels, they have to elevate. But because they can't elevate, then they have to make of the lower part they're part of, or the lower world they're part of, their kingdom. They have to create an ego around it. They make it grandiose. Then they start doing sorcery and magic and all this kind of stuff, because they can't elevate. So might as well build as much as they can and build a whole underworld that is really hell. And this is really how it is, in the sense of, in the world, like, for us to cleanse, we need to leave things that are earthy down. And those things have to do with money, have to do with material possession, have to do with thoughts, have to do with pride, have to do with traumas, have to do with a lot of things. We need to cleanse in a lot of different ways. And our feet are just the symbol of the dirtiest part of us, the part that we use the most. And this has to do, for example, for a banker, like someone who works in a bank, what are the feet? We're not talking about the feet in that sense, but that person has to navigate through a world in which a lot of things happen that ultimately go oftentimes against the population. So that person, a part of that person, in order for them to survive, has to put roots in a system that is evil. So that is the evil part, and they have to get rid of it. And so all of us, in order for us to survive in a world that is evil, or that the devil is conquered, or is trying to conquer because he can't elevate, we must in some way put roots in order for us to survive and to thrive and to reach wealth. We need to put roots in systems that are really evil. And so our survival becomes supported by evil. And so that's our evil, our roots. So we need to get rid of them. And once you get rid of the roots, then how do you survive in the world? And reality is that once you get rid of the fear, then um, get rid of the fear of not surviving, and realize that you're part of the kingdom of God already, and that if you have to survive as form, you're going to survive. If you don't have to survive as form, you're going to die as form, but you're ultimately eternal. Then you just surrender to the will of God, and you realize that if you have to survive, and if you have to thrive and to acquire wealth, God is going to send it to you, because it's really like the cells of our body um survive not because they try to survive at all costs, because if they do that, they become cancer. They survive and they have their function without even knowing that their function is fundamental for the entire body. And because they have their full function and they do what they have to do, then the body survives. And thanks to that, the body is capable of sending resources to the cell, and the cell survives. And instead, today we have forgotten about that. And people believe that they have to survive on their own against everybody else. And instead of supporting the body they're part of, they're draining the resources from it, and they're trying to kill the body they're part of. And that's the very source of the fear they have, in terms of they have fear of survival, because they're killing their body that will give them survival. And this body can be the earth, can be society, this can be their families, can be their community. If you drain your community, if you drain the earth, if you don't realize that you're part of it, and that you must really put roots in the system you're part of, not in evil things that they drain it, then you're going to become a cancer. And so it's important to instead discern between what things are sustainable and capable of giving to the population, to give back, to actually become necessary, and so they can survive, and things that instead are unsustainable and unnecessary, and they're going to just drain resources away from the body, not support it. So cleansing from things that don't support our system, that don't support our society, is also another step of cleansing. And this can have to do with cleansing from jobs, cleansing from values, cleansing from an educational system that doesn't really form people who are useful to society, but people who are useful to corporations. Let's keep going. So today our daily focus is on cleansing, and so also the prayer is for cleansing. So I'm going to be reading, and you can repeat the parts in red. And let's really focus on cleansing and really feel that we're being cleansed also at the same time that we're reading this prayer. Oh, Heavenly Lord, give me the wisdom to understand the time for me to cleanse. I pray you, Lord, to let me see the parts of me that need cleansing. Give me the strength to cleanse from evil. Give me the courage to let go of the parts of me that are not holy. And I pray you, Lord, to strengthen my faith so that I let go of all the things that weigh me down and keep me away from you. Amen. This church also believes, obviously, in nature, in Mother Nature. And so it's beautiful what our planet does, and every creature on this planet has a function. And you can see that, sorry, there is a mistake on this pamphlet. The daily focus was cleansing, not resurrection. So the daily teaching from Mother Nature today, we talk about cleansing again. And so cleansing in terms of earth, air, and water, because when we are part of a system, cleanse is not just to do with us. As you know, I've cleansed, I feel better. Every one of us has a function in the system, and if we cleanse ourselves, we regain the function we had of cleansing things around us. Every one of us is some sort of scavenging kind of function, in a sense, purifying kind of function in the world. Every one of us is trained. I'll give you an example. I want to give you an example on this. Let's say you and your sister have been triangulated as children, right? And so whenever you will do something wrong, she will get praised, and whenever she was doing something wrong, you will get praised. So ultimately, one of you was a little evil and the other one was not. But ultimately, the both of you have evolved to recognize the flaws in the other. And so when we are under abuse, for example, each one of us tend to develop a little bit of evil, because after a while we're like, how do I always get punished if I haven't done nothing wrong? anything wrong. And so we all start becoming sneaky in some way, maybe, or maybe we're not telling the truth all the time, or maybe we have made some mistakes. And so when these kind of dynamics happen, each one of us develops kind of like a radar to actually discover when the other person is lying, or when the other person is doing something wrong, or you know, and so, or when the other person is being evil. So each one of us is designed in a certain way. And so people who are born Christian tend to see when others are doing something wrong, and they don't even know how to call it. They don't even know that it's evil. They just know that it feels wrong. And people who are evil are like, how do I always get punished? And so they develop this radar to kind of figure out the loopholes that they can go through. But ultimately, in society, those two people are going to grow into people who recognize evil and lies, because lies are evil regardless of who is telling them. And so both people are going to develop a heightened sensitivity for when that specific archetype is telling the truth or not, is doing the right thing or not, is being evil or not, because evil gets punished all the time in our society, regardless. And so you see what I mean? It's like, so all of us have a function. So as long as we are ourselves, we're having a function. And that helps society to cleanse from evil and from negative energies. In the same way, in nature, everything is designed to ultimately cleanse and purify. And so there are plants like these acemos, for example, who cleanses the ocean from heavy metals, from certain kinds of like E. coli and cholera, like certain kinds of bacteria that are really Streptococcus, sorry, Salmonella. Um, so certain bacteria that are really poisonous for us, they're like pathogens. And instead, bottom left, you can see a earthworm, which is just, they purify the soil in so many ways, and they recycle things, recycle matter, and they're composters, right? Ultimately, and so they help us recycle things and change, like decompose matter in a way that then becomes soil, it becomes reusable. So they're absolutely necessary. And they're just worms, right? Like we consider them worms and we even kill them, but they're so necessary for our soil. So not everything in nature is beautiful in a sense. Things are what they are, but by being themselves, they have their own function. And then going to the air, to purifying the air, we had the snake plants. Snake plants literally absorb things like toxic compounds in the air that comes from cigarette smoking, from weed smoking, from pollution, benzene, and a lot of different compounds that are really toxic and that really cause cancer as well. And a single plant can really literally clean the whole apartment, your whole apartment. It's the best is to keep them in your bedroom, and they're actually gonna be improving your quality of sleep. It happened to me. But if you don't want to put them in your bedroom, just in your apartment, they're gonna clean the whole place. And then mushrooms, how beautiful mushrooms are. Like, this is incredible. Mushrooms are decomposers and they really recycle matter in a lot of ways. And every animal, we don't realize that we all are purifiers. We are sponges. We absorb and eat things, and then we poop out and we urinate the polluted side that our body doesn't need, and what stays in our body is the clean part that we need. Unfortunately, obviously, if we eat junk food that doesn't contain anything good, even if we poop and urinate and get rid of things that are toxic, all the rest is still toxic. And so there is no good part there, but we must survive. And so part of it, we must absorb it. So it's fundamental, like eating healthy is fundamental because we are what we eat. And so all of these things, I feel like we have these misinterpretations sometimes, like misconception that purifiers are dirty, right? Animals who purify are dirty. But no, we all are purifiers. We eat things and then we get rid of the part that we don't need. right? And so that doesn't mean that you're dirty. However, if you're in an environment that is very dirty, then it's difficult for you to not be dirty as well. Like I will not eat a clam that is in a pond of oil, right? Of like petroleum, because even if it has, has filtered out things, still like the petroleum is in such excess that it's difficult for it to actually purify it, so it becomes just saturated. So the problem is the excess, is not, not decomposers, or like animals or plants who purify are not necessarily dirty, but they do become if there is a saturation of things, and they ultimately are what they absorb, because they absorb those molecules. And so if they absorb a cadaver, they are, they contain the molecules of that cadaver. If you eat meat that comes from torture, you are being tortured, like. So it's fundamental for us to understand this, because that's exactly what we need to cleanse from. And for example, I had to become vegetarian initially, and then vegan and fructarian, also because I'm a medium and a channeler, and I started becoming very, very sensitive to these energies. Because the more you purify your body, the more your body becomes more centered and focused. And as soon as there's something that makes you drift, you immediately realize it. And there's like something rings in your body and is like, this is not okay, and like it gives you mental distress. So I had to start really realizing that all of these food that we eat, and it's not just about pesticides. It's not about pesticides or hormones. It's about the torture. It's about the supply chain. It's about how that food is made. Is it made with love, or is it made with hate? Is it made thanks to oppressing a population in some rural area abroad, or is it made by loving the employees and loving those who carry all these produce and who harvest them and who grow them? Is it made through love, or is it made through hate? That is the real question we need to answer. That has nothing to do with hormones or with pesticides and the things that the food labels are like indicate, that are really not, don't want to say unnecessary, because they're absolutely necessary as well, but they're really not what hinder our spiritual elevation. And today we're going to be working on the Anga Agna chakra, which is the third eye here. So the third eye really has to do with intuition. And so when we are very much clogged, and the very first thing that happens to us is that our third eye is really not capable of reactivating. And our third eye is connected to our pineal gland from a neurobiological perspective, but from an energetic perspective, the actual point where the Agnya chakra is here, and this is the centrum of, it's called centrum, the front part of the chakra. And so we have a whole energy point that really goes through our whole brain, and that part is elevated because our chakra work is that it's really our spiritual energy that gets sublimated from our body and by our body and through our body, and reaches higher and higher levels. And when it reaches this level, it's very high, and it's not the highest, but it's very high. And that means that we have seen through all the other layers, and we have overcome all the other layers. And because of that, we have understood all the other things that we went through, and all the other propaganda and lies and things, and indoctrinations we go through, and all the other evils, and we have finally awakened to this level. But this is important to say, because chakra activation, or like being awakened or being enlightened from a chakra standpoint, does not necessarily mean having cleansed from evil. These are two things that don't necessarily go together. This has to do with our capability of being aware. But if you're a bad weed, you're going to become aware of being a bad weed. If you're wheat, you're going to become aware of being wheat. And so this is not necessary for us to spiritually elevate only. It's necessary for us to mostly really become aware and self-aware, and become present. And once we're present, then we can more consciously avoid stress and avoid evil and become aware of being Christians and start walking that path. But not all people do yoga, who practice yoga, or who practice Kundalini Tantra are actually good people, like in the sense, like some people are evil even if they do yoga, because being at peace has nothing to do with being a good person or being a Christian. You can be at peace because you realize you're cruel and you're okay with that. So, like, and this is something that I had to come to realize by myself by meeting a lot of people working in this field, and not all of them are good people, not all of them follow the 10 commandments. A lot of people don't care, and thanks to yoga they're very much at peace with what they do. And so yoga in itself is very neutral, I will say. It's like, as a lot of things, ultimately they're very neutral, and it's up to you to react in a way that you demonstrate what kind of person you are. And you cannot really change yourself. Like, if your inner engine in this lifetime is still tainted by evil, is still evil, is still genetically and epigenetically speaking, you're still carrying negative energies and trauma, then that's going to be your response to these things. You cannot really change that. You're going to have to wait until the next lifetime and the next lifetime for your spirit and your body to purge from these things and to change to the point that you're going to be able to see this choice, to go through this choice, and to give a different response, to demonstrate of being a person who is wheat instead of bad weeds, instead of tares. So let's work on Agna Chakra. Now, if you guys want to attend um my classes, let me go back to my here. Let me stop sharing. You guys should be able to see me now. So first of all, let's do this together. So we're going to be working on our Agna Chakra. To do that, we're going to be moving our awareness from our nostrils to our nose, and then to our forehead, and then from our forehead to our nose to our nostrils. To become aware of these points, we just focus on the air that goes through them. And as the air goes through them, we use the air that stimulates, our perceptory organs to become aware of these parts of our body. And so just try to focus your attention on those points that the air stimulates. Really try to focus to the point that you don't feel anything in your body, in your mind, other than those points. Really, this is important. And it's going to come much easier with practice. But the very first time, just try to forcefully focus on these points and really feel that you're perceiving those things. And you may have a little slightly feeling of like headache maybe, but it's just because that means that you need to reactivate your third eye. There is a blockage there, and this is going to happen. You're going to reactivate it with time. So just close our eyes, relax our shoulders, roll them backward, stay straight, align your crown chakra with your sacrum, and then breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in from your nose, feel your nostrils, your nose, your forehead, and then your forehead, your nose, your nostrils. And if you've done that, you're gonna see that when you do these things, oftentimes thoughts come to mind, and those that is because you need to cleanse. So every time when you work on chakra healing and chakra activation, certain parts um certain parts are like get active, or like certain thoughts get more or lesser kind of like pop up in your mind, is because those are in some way the things that are clogging your chakra. And so just what you want to do is to kind of step back, sit back, and just watch those things flow instead of becoming those thoughts. So this is important because in that way you're going to first of all acquire self-awareness and de-identify from those things and avoid for those things to distract you. But second, also, you're going to be really realizing what is going on in your life and what is actually happening, what is preventing you from being aware, from being cleansed from all of these clogs. Is that ego? Is that pride? Is fear? What is that? Is it shame? Is it guilt? All of these negative things tend to bring us down, to weigh us down. So those are the things we need to get rid of. And so chakra activation really helps you see also what clogs your chakras. And so if you spend more time to perform chakra activation, that also helps you to kind of avoid becoming um, kind of slave of those things, like allows you to become more self-aware and more present, and to really figure out on time uh, what kind of things you need to work on. But you need to practice for a little longer, because at the very beginning they kind of distract you, and then after a while you're like, oh, okay, so I'm getting distracted. Why am I getting distracted? Oh, okay, this thought came to mind, so what is this thought? So then you step back and you're like, oh, okay, let me see it flow. Oh, okay, it causes me certain reactions. So what are those reactions and where do they come from? So that's what it means to sit back, to just observe and study. And then the next level is, oh, okay, so it doesn't make any sense. It's just an irrational fear, and I'm just eternal. Then you sit even more back, and you see yourself getting activated by those things, and be like, okay, this doesn't make any sense. I can be at peace. But it takes time, just in one session, also, in the sense that the very first reaction is always negative, it's always a trigger. And instead, afterwards, if you keep going, you just realize, okay, these things don't make any sense. But it takes time, both on the same session and in time, like you should practice, in the sense that you should practice. Let's go back to sharing our screen and see what's next. So the daily focus was on cleansing today, and there is always holistic advice as part of my ceremonies. So cleansing, for what I mean, how I mean it in this ceremony, has to do with also shedding away and purify from what does not serve us. So I like to think of it as a statue. So these are the statue of an angel just randomly, but um, is a statue. And what is a statue? A statue is a piece of marble, marble, a piece of marble that is being cleansed from parts that were unnecessary for it to become the statue that it became. So initially it was just a piece of like rock, and then someone took away the parts that was not necessary to make the shape emerge. So that's how we really are as well. So another example I like to give from a physical standpoint is a meteor. Imagine a meteor that goes through the atmosphere of our planet. It just goes through, and by doing that, it sheds away all the parts that burn and burn and burn. And for the meteor to keep going, the meteor reaches planet Earth only if, by removing all the parts that it didn't need and that were in attrition with the Earth, there is something in the meteor that does not cause attrition. Isn't that beautiful? Like, you can only land on this planet if you ultimately have something that is compatible and resistant to the planet. Otherwise, you're just gonna burn. Like the atmosphere is like a barrier for external things to enter from entering. And in the same way, it's us, like we elevate and reach the highest holy dimension, the heaven we're supposed to reach, if we cleanse from all the things that we don't need and that cause attrition with that, with our pride. Like Jesus said, you need to be so, like, you need to be small and innocent like a child for you to go through the doors of the gates of the kingdom of heaven, because you need to shed away all the things that you don't need, and the only thing that you need is the truth. You don't need anything else. You need only the truth. And what is the truth? Once you find that truth, that's really what you need. And that's it. Like, and we all have so many things we put around that we need to shed away. And again, this takes, I have given a lot of holistic advice so far already, but like this goes back to the fact that we need to shed away trauma and ego and pride and all those things, but also that those things come from molecules, like physical molecules that come from animals that are tortured. Like if you survive by feeding off of animals who are tortured, what kind of person are you? And so your body knows that you must not be a good person. And so it makes you become someone who is not pure, who is not holy, who needs cleansing, because those molecules come from torture. And so we need to cleanse from those molecules as well. And from a holistic, like, well-being standpoint, is both a matter of physical, like for example, I have cleansed for the past 2 years from meat. It took me 2 years to cleanse from meat, and now I feel cleansed. I feel more cleansed, and now I'm not even sure I'm fully cleansed. Like, there is this belief that every it's difficult to demonstrate from a scientific standpoint, but like this, the belief that um, our body is completely regenerated every 7 years. So every 7 years, we're like a new person. We have recycled all the cells of our body, and maybe all of our atoms and molecules are new as well, because we eat and then we cleanse. We eat and then we cleanse. So we're putting in new molecules that we use to build our body, and we're cleansing from old molecules. And so we're ultimately, renovating and renovating and renovating to the point that the whole molecule, the entirety of the molecules of our body are new. And they don't come from things like that are toxic for us or that contain hate and evil. So it's important to cleanse physically from these things, and that takes time, because again, we are sponges and we absorb what we eat. And so it's not that you're like, okay, I stopped eating meat today and I've cleansed from meat. It takes years for you to cleanse from certain things, from alcohol, from a lot of stuff. And there are certain things that we cannot cleanse from. We cannot cleanse in the sense that we cannot um, just drain out. For example, liver stones and gallbladder stones, and that's why I also guide people to cleanse from liver and gallbladder stones, because those also contain molecules and trauma and energies, but those are things who get stuck in our liver and our gallbladder. And so if we don't get rid of them, they really cause illnesses for a lot of reasons, including that they block the ducts of our liver, and they block the flow of blood and of things that we need to detoxify. And ultimately, our liver is our detoxifying organ. And so if the detoxifying organ is clogged, then our body gets lesser and lesser detoxified. And so we get clogged as well. So from a holistic standpoint, cleansing takes a lot of shapes, because I actually host a workshop on this. It sounds like I'm doing advertisement, but because it's such a big topic, and so I prefer to just tell you, I also host a free workshop on this that is called Decluttering from the Inside Out, and it's free, and it just explains you all the different ways in which you can cleanse as well. But ultimately, we really need to shed away things we don't need. And as we do that from a physical standpoint, that is going to reflect on a neurobiological standpoint as well. And that is going to reflect on the kind of antenna we are. We are antennas. And so the more our antenna is pure, the more we can attract different kinds of energies that are more pure as well. So we're not going to be able to do our uh, We Are One Circle because I'm recording this. So, but the whole point of the We Are One Circle is to help you guys understand yourself and others and reconnect with others and love each other for who you really are, because ultimately people become vessels of evil because they feel like they don't belong, they feel like outcast, they feel like they're accused, they're being marginalized, and so in fear of that they bond with other evil people to find protection because they feel like they are alone and they are in a hostile world and everybody potentially can attack them. So that's why people do that. But if we love one another, if we accept one another, then evil is not going to put its roots anyways and anywhere. And so that's why it's important to love one another and to understand one another and to understand like the perspective we all have. So for today, I suggest you to do this exercise by yourself or with your friends or with your family, and it's really beautiful. So this is the We Are One circle. This is something that I do during my ceremonies. So the We Are One circle works like this. Let's say today we talk about cleansing, for example, and the topic is to tell all the times that you felt like um, something was a hindrance for you to be pure, or something that someone did around you was preventing you from being pure and was becoming a clog in some way, was becoming a poison, something toxic that then you had to cleanse from. So let's say this to one another so that we can teach each other what kind of things are not okay to do and what kind of behaviors are evil or are somewhat not um, pure to the point of becoming toxic for others. And so I'll go first. I feel like things that and there's so many, obviously, so many toxic behaviors that people have. I feel like I want to try and talk about things that people who already are good do as well sometimes, and though they don't realize they do them, which is, for example, um, putting you through unnecessary stress, um like for example telling me lies. Maybe some those are lies of that are not um bad in a sense, they just say them because they don't want to tell the truth about themselves, they have something to hide. But by doing that they really cause me to having to figure them out and to having to kind of figure out what kind of person they are. And I'm a psychic and a channeler too, but um I don't like I kind of respect other people's privacy in a sense, and so I don't always read people intentionally, only when things come to me. And I just allow them to just show me who they are. And I know a lot more even without intentionally trying to read them. I just know a lot more about people. For example, the fact that they're lying, I already know that. But the whole reason behind it, I don't really ask them, nor I try to inquire by myself intentionally. But ultimately, they cause me. It's a source of stress because then I'm gonna have to figure them out and understand why they're doing that. Understand that they are not trustworthy, maybe, or maybe they are trustworthy, but they are shame. They're ashamed of who they are, or they're ashamed of something they've done. They're ashamed of something, of telling me the truth ultimately, or they feel guilty. Everybody has their own reason to do that, but ultimately they do that, and that causes me stress and clogs and things that I have to cleanse from. I have to find my own time to cleanse from those things, because if I internalize them, then it becomes either compulsive thought or a trigger or something that ultimately stresses me out and that activates my fight or flight mode. Because if people around you are not trustworthy, then the world around you is not trustworthy, and then you're fearful because you're like, I don't understand my world. How am I going to survive in it? And so that triggers the fear of having to survive at all costs. And that prevents you, like that's what weighs you down. And so I have to cleanse from that. And oftentimes for me, cleansing from that means that I have to detach from that person. I have to say, hey, sorry, but like we cannot stay together because you're becoming toxic for me. And so this is the first part. The second part of the We Are One circle is that it's a circle, right? So you're talking about someone who is not there, hopefully, or maybe, like if there's someone there that you want to tell something to more specifically, you can do that. But this is not the meaning of the circle. The the whole purpose of the circle is not to go against one another, but to tell our perspective on the world without saying names necessarily, actually. And actually, if you don't say names, it's even better. Then if people around you want to say, okay, like I think I do this sometimes, I'm sorry. So the whole purpose is we all say what we think, and then at the end we all get the chance to respond to everybody. So this has to be brief. We all get the chance to respond to everybody and to say, okay, I think the same, or I do the same. And sometimes I do that because I'm under stress, I'm unconscious, or I have my own insecurities, or, this is the reason why I do that. So I'm sorry if that makes you feel, you know, clogged, or you need to cleanse from it. I'll try not to do that anymore, or I'll try to heal from it, or, I acknowledge that I do that and I'm sorry. And so we all get to talk, and we all get to explain the other side. Do you see how beautiful it is? We all get to explain the opposite side of this coin, which is I get hurt because of you. Why are you doing that? And the other person is like, because I'm hurt, because I am hurt. And so I do this because it's a reflection on my inner world, and I'm sorry. And we all have this side in some way. We all do something that gets people hurt. Even people who are evil get hurt because we, they feel that they are accused all the time and they're attacked all the time, and they don't see why they're wrong, because they are born this way, because it's in their DNA, because it's in their families, because it's in their epigenetics, because it's their inner engine. And so, they also feel judged all the time. So all of these things, it's important to really figure that out amongst ourselves and realize, how to understand one another. So how beautiful is that? And so now we're going to be doing, you can do this with your family, with your friends. And now the next part is what I call the We Are One meditation. This is a meditation that I have invented when I was a little child, actually. And I just realized I didn't know that I was a psychic or a channeler, but I think I must have had some sort of Kundalini awakening, where I was very awakened in a past lifetime. And so as a child, I used to be very awakened and very observant and very spiritual without being in a spiritual family. I basically invented a meditation in which I would pretend of being other people just to feel the feeling of oneness, to feel the feeling of ego death, to realize that this was just a body and that I was not that body. I was the whole. I was everything. And I would go up and up and up until I would just realize that I was just this tiny little dot on planet Earth. And I was able to become planet Earth, to become the universe. And at that time, I was not able um, to kind of word it like this. Like I was not able to understand that that was what I was doing, that I was experiencing the eternity of and the unity of being the universe. But that was ultimately what I was doing. I was trying to ascend my body of a child, the body of a child, and the reality of a child, and reach something bigger. And I started doing it when I was 8 or 5. I don't remember. I was very little. And so now I change it and I teach it in my classes, and here it's for you for free today. And it's called We Are One Meditation. So let's close our eyes and really try and relax and breathe in and breathe out from your nose. As you breathe in and breathe out, relax your shoulders, relax your neck, stretch if you need, stretch your back, make sure All the parts of your body are relaxed. Really tell your body to relax. Tell your fingers, your toes, your legs, your neck, your head, your face, all your body to relax. And as you breathe in from your nose and breathe out from your nose, gain awareness of your body. And this is you. I want you to expand this awareness to people around you or in your home or, people just even if they're not there, your friends, your family, just expand this awareness to them and include them in this field of awareness wherever they are. Just try to look at the world from their eyes, in which you're just a minor character. They're doing their chores, their errands, their things, they're taking care of stuff, and you're just on the side. And really feel the feeling of being on the side, being just this minor thing, not them. There's someone who has the same level of consciousness and presence that you have, but they're the protagonist in their own life, and you're just a side minor character in their life. So feel the feeling of not being the protagonist for a few seconds. I want you to, now that you have channeled their personality, right, that you have been able to feel how they feel and look at the world as they look at the world, really perceive that in this field of awareness, there's your frequency and their frequency as well, and my frequency as well. Really feel my frequency too, and feel that we're here together. Now expand this field of awareness to the space around you, the room or the outdoor. And that is you. And that is us. We are one. Now keep expanding this field of awareness to your whole city, wherever you are. All the people going around, all the different kinds of cultures or different kinds of personalities, jobs, chores, and kids and adults, and all the wildlife too, and the plants and everything in it, in the traffic and restaurants and labs and all these different things in it. That is you, and that is us. We are one. Now keep expanding this field of awareness and keep going up in the sky. I want you to go very fast and very far away and go past the clouds and keep going, keep going, keep going very far away until you see the whole planet keeps rotating. the ocean and the land, the wildlife and the urban areas, in the forests, in the rural areas, people in their farms, people in their offices, in planes, in cars, in boats, and news and wars and cultures and all things ongoing at all times in Wall Street and the stock market, in schools and children, all these things going on at all times, all the time. And humans and wildlife everywhere in the ocean, on the land, and all the plants, and all the algae. And that is you, and that is us. We are one. Now keep going up in the sky. I want you to go very, very fast, past the solar system, past the galaxy, past everything. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, very, very far away until you reach the end of the universe. You're past everything, you're really at the end. And feel this feeling of eternity, being this huge universe with all these things going on in it. But you're always the same. You're just peaceful and eternal. Things change inside of you, but nothing really changes. You're fine. You're always going to be fine. You're always going to be fine. Just really feel this feeling of being this universe with all this matter and all the nothingness, with the movement and the stillness, with the sound and the silence, with a lot of light and a lot of darkness, with stars and black holes and planets and everything in between. This whole spectrum of things. I really feel the feeling of being all of it. As you breathe in, the whole universe breathes in. And as you breathe out, the whole universe breathes out. Now I want you to decide to consciously go down, but this time you're gonna keep in mind this feeling of being the universe. You're gonna remember being the whole universe. You're gonna be going down and down and down until you reach planet Earth. All these things ongoing all the time. And you still remember being the universe. Keep going down and down and down until you reach your city again. But you remember being the universe. I want you to go down and down and down until you reach the place you're at right now and all the people you've included in your field of awareness. But you still remember being the universe. And then you go down and you back to your body. But you still remember being the universe. And as you breathe in, the whole universe breathes in. And as you breathe out, the whole universe breathes out. I'm gonna count to 5, and you're gonna feel more at peace. 4, you're gonna feel relaxed. 3, you're gonna feel empowered. 2, you're gonna feel joyful. 1, you're gonna feel ready and alert. You're gonna go back to your body and feel your body and feel your feet and your toes. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. and get back to us. And I hope you enjoyed this beautiful meditation that I really love and people in my classes really love. And this is the end of our ceremony, and it's usually every other Sunday at 9 a.m. Pacific time on Zoom. So you all can join from your couch, from wherever you are, and see what actually goes on in this church and what kind of things I'm preaching and what the belief system of the church is. And I hope to see you next time. And let me know, hit me up. And this is my channel on YouTube. I don't really post here very much, other than sometimes worship services. But you can check also my Patreon, and this is also my Patreon channel if you guys found this on Patreon. And check out the other posts as well and support me, because this church has a huge mission and I'm doing a lot of things to improve the world for everybody. I'm a human rights defender, and through this church, I'm doing a lot of good things. So support me as well. You can find the links here, and I hope I'll see you next time.